Hello and welcome to Table for One. Jacob Coens. I'm really excited to see you because I kind of feel like I know you a little bit because we've interacted quite a bit on Twitter, and you are a big proponent of the Fargo Theater, and we love them, of course. So it is so nice to see you. Welcome.
Right. Thank you. It's so nice to see you guys too.
So you picked Fargo, appropriately enough, 1996. A total classic. I mean, for me, top 5 Coen brothers. What is Fargo about?
My favorite. So
is it okay? What's Fargo about then?
Okay, so Fargo is about a car salesman named Jerry Lundegaard, played by William H. Macy, and he makes a deal with a couple criminals, played by Steve Buscemi and Peter Stormare, to kidnap his wife in exchange for half of his rich stepfather's ransom money. And now things go a little bit off plan with the criminals, and this leads into an investigation by Police Chief Officer Marge Gunderson. And Marge Gunderson is this cop who is about 7 months pregnant, as they say.
Maybe more. Like she's fixing to pop any second now.
And she's getting to basically learn what it is to kind of suss out people that are maybe at face value not exactly who they say they are. And we kind of learn throughout the movie certain examples, whether it's through her high school classmate that she reunites with in a very particular scene, and then of course with Jerry and how she's able to solve the investigation on her own.
So of all the movies in all the world, I mean, this is an excellent one, of course, but why did you want to talk about this film with us today?
I felt like it was easy and it's very in theme with right now where the weather is getting really cold, and it's about to snow for the first time this year on Thursday. Okay. And so watching Fargo, it's almost a bit therapeutic because you get to see kind of average everyday life in the winter. People that are locals from around here or in the cities deal with the winter stress. And of course, on top of what they're going through is a murder investigation, which doesn't always happen here. But of course, getting to watch somebody like Marge get up in the morning and try to start her car, thinking that she's going to start her day, and then have to go back inside, get the car, with the classic line, Prowler needs jump. and or Jerry trying to scrape his windows out of frustration and ending up just chucking the scraper into the snow. So I think all of us in this area prepare for that emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And through Fargo, it's fun to watch these characters basically lose their minds in a sense, or some keep it together like Marge. There's 2 different types of people that you might meet if you're ever a local here or visiting here. There's the types that are going to be very nice and very genuine, very sweet. And then there's the types that are going to be at face value sweet, but maybe not the nicest people. That's where the Minnesota nice, right. The Minnesota nice stereotype comes from.
It can be a fallacy. Like it can be for any part of the country. You lived in LA, people assume people in LA are all plastic and fake, and that's not true. Right. Alonso, what are your memories of Fargo?
So I had not seen this movie since it came out theatrically. Oh, wow. And I saw it then, and I remember being kind of mixed about it. Okay. But I couldn't really remember why, because it had been so long. And so watching it again, I really appreciate all the things that I do love about this movie. I love the sort of dark sense of humor, the very dry performances, the beauty of the sort of quotidian nature of winter there, that overhead shot with the one car in the parking lot and all the planters filled with snow, that's gorgeous. Although you don't want to be the person whose car that is, so all of that stuff I think is great. I think for me, my one thing is the scene with the high school friend always sits wrong with me. Okay. Because I can't help escaping the idea that the joke isn't it hilarious that this Asian guy has this Minnesota accent, and it's like, okay, yeah, I guess, and I don't know. It just, there's something about it that always just kind of is a little bit of a pebble in my shoe. But beyond that, I think I appreciated and knew all the performances, particularly Franny McDee's. I think, her marriage is so great, like the way that it's portrayed, the way that the husband is like, will get out of bed and make her eggs and like bring her lunch and take care of her and stuff. Like I thought that was really lovely. And
his stamp is as important as her murder investigation.
Exactly. Yes. The conversations they have about his painting and stuff and the mallards. So yeah, no, I watching it again made me realize, okay, I get why this is a movie that is a modern classic. It spawned a TV show that I've generally liked, although I kind of bailed out of the last season that had Chris Rock, but all the previous seasons of the TV Fargo I thought were great. I still need to see, is it Kimiko the Treasure Hunter? Is that the name of that movie?
Yes.
Do you know about this one, Christy?
Yeah, I've seen it.
So yeah, I need to see that one now that I've watched this again. But yeah, so it was, thank you, Jacob, for the opportunity to revisit this movie, because I probably would not have organically done so, for much, but I like it better now seeing it again than I think I've thought about how I've liked it over the years.
I've always loved Fargo. Fargo for me is top 5 Coens. It's like No Country, Fargo, Inside Llewyn Davis, A Serious Man, and probably Lebowski. And when I think about those 5, I think about how, we view the Coens as making like every kind of movie, but there is a through line, I think, in terms of the kind of character that they are drawn to, who is a man who is out of step, out of place, out of time, and like doesn't understand why things can't work for him, or doesn't understand why he can't make this thing happen for himself, whether it's like Tommy Lee Jones just kind of being, of a different time in No Country for Old Men. Michael Stuhlbarg, I try to do the right thing. I'm a serious man, and like nothing goes right for him. The dude is on his own planet, on his own wavelength at all times. So I think about how all these, like the Coens are drawn to these kind of outsider misfits who are totally certain as to what their purpose is. Like Jerry Lundegaard does not know that he's a boob. Like Jerry Lundegaard thinks he's this like brilliant criminal mastermind and he's going to pull this off. And like, yeah, it's super ethically questionable and also illegal, but like he thinks he's doing the right thing because he wants to get this, car parking lot situation going for himself. And he's sick of being, the rich guy's son-in-law. So I think looking at all of them, there's like a frustration of all these films that plays out in ways that are very tense and ways that are very funny.
It also ties, I think, to Blood Simple in terms of like how imperfect the perfect crime can wind up being, like how far afield from the best laid plans and of, how these things are going to go, and just like the sort of how violence begets more violence and things just spiral further and further out of control.
This and a Simple Plan, I always think of as like a good double feature, because simple people who think they can get it figured out and like one bad decision leads to another, This won Oscars for Frances McDormand, her first Oscar, and also for the Coen screenplay. It was nominated for 5 others, including Best Picture, Best Director, and of course for my great hero, Roger Deakins, who shoots those overhead shots of the planters so magnificently. And I've never been to that part of the world, Jacob, but he captures it in such like bleakly beautiful, vivid ways, like the texture of the snow. And just, I can't imagine how hard it must have been to light that area where like the ground and the sky all kind of blend into one. Like the simplicity of it is so masterful.
And it's accurate too, because driving in the wintertime is, in here at least, especially on roads that are mostly unoccupied. Like my hometown is about a half hour away from here, so I have to take a highway down there. And in the wintertime, it does look like that. It looks just blanket white. And like to say that I've almost died going to work and saying that naturally and just being comfortable with that is just a statement of, what winter driving is like in Minnesota and North Dakota. With the shooting of Fargo in general, there were some exterior shots that were shot in Fargo. I don't even think they were for the scene that takes place in Fargo. I think that they just went around whatever weather worked best for them. They did the same when they went to Grand Forks and picked up exterior shots. But most of this was shot in the cities, in the Twin Cities, and around
Brainerd.
Where, actually a little bit more Brainerd, and in areas that the Coen brothers actually grew up in. So they're from, I think, St. Louis Park, and there's a lot of St. Louis Park that is documented in this film, and which is kind of a relief because so many times when there are Midwest movies, there are movies that take place in Minnesota, they usually shoot in Canada because of, I don't know,
cheaper.
It's cheaper, and it's, easier to control, maybe control the weather depending on the location, but
tax breaks
and tax breaks, and it's very easy, right? And it's very easy to tell. Even movies like Juno shoot in Canada, entirely in Canada, and all of us can recognize when it's not. And the Fargo television.
So what's different then? How can you tell?
Okay, I think it's just the cityscapes, the general atmosphere. I think that when you're depicting a city like Brainerd, which they shot in because they drive by the Paul Bunyan statue and whatnot, but there is kind of this general like loneliness to the weather. The sky is always white. It's not blue, or it's rarely blue. It's rarely, anything else. But like most of the day, like right now, currently, it is just white. And there's like a wetness to the ground. There's just like a general, I don't know, I guess it's just once you're familiar with a space for so long that when you see something else try to depict that space, it just comes off a little false. And like the Fargo television show also shot in Canada. And there's the one scene, of course, every season or so has a scene set in Fargo, just like the movie. And there are like skyscraper type buildings. And I can tell you that in Fargo, North Dakota, the tallest building is a bank.
Well, that's like, we know when things are wrong in LA, right? This is like one of our favorite topics, is like when the geography is wrong. So.
Right. But, even the scenes that like do take place in Fargo, even though they're not filmed in Fargo, I could find a place just like that, and I know exactly where it is on what street. And so they were so great at location scouting this movie, and you could trick people into thinking that only one scene takes place in Fargo, the rest in Minnesota, but you could trick people into thinking that every location is where it actually is. I know in a lot of your reviews, when you talk about LA geography, you can always point out like how, like what highway, what exit takes here to go where. And because there's such a rarity with films that take place in the Midwest, I feel like we notice it more.
And the Coens care, like it's their home. Alonso, what were you going to say?
Oh no, just some stuff that was new for me this time. Drea Clark, who is one of my co-hosts on Maximum Film, is from Minnesota and actually went to White Bear Lake High School. And whenever it comes up, she says "Go Bears." and I was like, okay, are you quoting the movie, or is the movie quoting what you guys all say? She goes, no, that's what we say. You say, I went to White Bear Lake, go Bears. Like that's just how the sentence comes out. And then also the fact that, just real quick, Mike mentions living in Eden Prairie with his parents, and Eden Prairie is where they shot Mystery Science Theater 3000.
The thing with Mike Yanagita, if I can real fast just respond to your complaint about that, I think, it does clang a little bit, but it's also important in terms of like connective tissue between the different Jerry Lundegaard interviews, because like something kind of clicks with her when she talks to him, and then afterward realizes that he was lying about everything, and like that kind of sets her on her case. Obviously lying. Like from the first interview, he's so like twitchy and abrupt. Like I don't know why she's not immediately picking up on that. Because I think Marge, despite being so savvy and such an excellent detective, is also really kind-hearted and wants to see the good in people. And so she probably felt really bad for him. That's why she said yes to his lunch invitation. And even like the way she kind of rebuffs him, oh, I don't want to have to crane my neck. Like that's polite too. She could have been like, fuck off, creep. But like she's really nice to this guy, and she feels bad for him. So I think those two seemingly contradictory elements of her personality are part of what make this character so fascinating. And then she's able to go back to Jerry Lundegaard with a fresh perspective, kind of. Also, it's kind of funny that when she asks for a recommendation of where to eat, that she's told to go to the Radisson Buffet. Like in the big city, that's the restaurant they suggest for her to go eat. Go ahead. What is that?
She's also really nice to Mike when she's being assertive, when he tries to like sit on the same side as her and she's not pushing him off, but she's just like, you know, she's being very like calm, and they'll put, you know, all the words are coming out. She's instructing him what to do. And I do think that
she's enormously pregnant. Why would you then like trap her in a bench, you know?
Yeah. And also I think he's part of the tradition of men in this thing who are just like needy and desperate.
True.
He's just one more dude that she's got to deal with.
Going crazy out there by the lake.
Right. Except for her husband. Like every man in this thing is like needy and desperate and kind of pathetic. And she's the hero. There's like quotable lines like, we say tan Sierra all the time. If we see a wood chipper, of course. There's so many, of course, I'm not quite sure about your detective work there, Lou. Like there's just so many quotable lines in this movie. So I feel like this is a part of our lives, you know, quite a bit. But beyond the obvious, like, oh yeah, you betcha. Hey, is that mocking, do you think, Jacob? Like the oh yeah, you betcha stuff?
See, I'll just preface this by saying that this movie has always been in like the cultural osmosis of my life. Even before I saw the movie happen, it's always been referenced around me, quoted around me, and I never knew where it was from until I was in high school and I realized that it was from the movie Fargo that I had always heard about but never seen. And I'm watching the movie and everyone's like, they exaggerate the accents, they exaggerate the sayings and the stereotypes, but they don't. I think that people there are people that don't have strong accents and there are people that do. And so what the Coen brothers are doing is that they're lampooning a very specific culture of people. You know, there are some actors that do sell the accent better than others, but for the most part, I have met every single one of these people at my church, you know, or just in my general neighborhood. I do think that there is a layer of very knowing accuracy, and they know because they grew up around it. You know, they grew up probably in more the Jewish Minneapolis center, you know, when they were living in Minnesota. But they've been around, you know, they've definitely been to these areas, even as far as Fargo and you know, Fargo is the sister city to Minnesota's Moorhead. And so they're connected. That's, you know, where I'm from is around Moorhead, and then there's a bridge, and then it's Fargo. So we're literally right on the line. And they name drop Moorhead in The Big Lebowski, which is also kind of one of those things that, like, if you show The Big Lebowski to anybody over here that hasn't seen it before, everyone jumps up and they catch the reference.
That's funny. It's just an LA movie I think of, but that's funny. Right. Yeah. Oh, also, we always, whenever we see, my husband and I, any reference to Jose Feliciano, we're always like, Jose Feliciano, you got no complaints. Like literally every single time. Like just last week, I want to say we did that. And I love the Carter Burwell score. It is so haunting.
Yes. Was not nominated
subdued,
either.
So singular.
It's ridiculous.
But amazing, right?
Yeah.
Totally amazing. So we do numbers around here. So what is your number, my friend, on Fargo?
I was floating between a 6.5 and a 10.
Oh.
But
I would think it'd be higher.
Oh no, for sure. I know. I'm saying a 10, of course.
Okay.
There is when Roger Ebert reviewed this movie, he did call it immediately one of the best films of the 90s and one of the best films that American films that he had seen. But there's actually a review that he did for Juno, in which he gave Juno 4 stars because there's not a false scene in the movie. There's not a scene out of place in that movie. And that's exactly how I feel about Fargo. Every scene, even if it feels out of place, if it feels like it leads to nothing, eventually it'll come back around and connect. Everything will connect. And the movie is so filled with those little bite-sized scenes of dialogue that sometimes you do feel like it's aimless until it does eventually come back. You know, whether it's the stuff with the character of Mike or anything that has to do with Marge's investigation or Jerry's troubles or whatnot. But
I love the last line of the film. I love what she's saying in the car, you know, as it's ending. It's like a perfect note to end on, just how pointless all of this was. Alonso, what is your number?
I'll say 9. I think it's really great, and it is better than I remember it being. I don't know that it's my top 5 Coens because, like, I think I would have Raising Arizona up there and Man Who Wasn't There, which I think
so
never
beautiful.
gets enough love.
I love that film. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
But yes, absolutely, I get why this movie matters and why it has had such the sort of cultural footprint that it has. Again, like when we talk about like Avatar being a hit, but nobody quotes it, you know, like everybody quotes Fargo, so that counts.
I'm going to go with a 10 also. I was really happy to see you pick this. So this was great. Jacob, so fun talking to you and meeting you in person.
Thank you, sir.
I know you've been around with us for a while, so it was so great to finally meet you. So thanks.
Yes, thank you. I had a great time.